Welcome back, Sleepyheads, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sleepy Aliens Perspective. I'm your host, H. Lee, and of course, I have more to say about the Diddler, Diddy, Puff Daddy. After the 50 Cent documentary, I want to say that I thought it was a very good documentary, but I have to give props to Lovely T, and if anyone follows her Patreon, then you know that she did a very long documentary about P. Diddy, and she breaks down more of the controversies with his other artists on the Bad Boy label and how he basically robbed them, and a lot of them were penniless and a lot of them have no ownership over their music. And she goes into some of the other nuances concerning other theories about Diddy, and also provides a lot of good evidence. So I have to say, out of all the Diddy documentaries, Lovely T is my favorite, but I also have to say 50 Cent and that grin, and what he was able to put together for the general public, and for him to release that on Netflix so that other people can really understand, the depth of what Diddy has done and the kind of person that he is. I think that says a lot. But what I want to focus on today, and what I also want to say, is that if there will be a part 2 of this documentary, I hope it sheds light on the fact that, I hope it sheds light on the allegations concerning the younger individuals that Diddy has impacted. And I know that 50 Cent wanted to focus on the facts, less of the, the unverified conspiracies. Though I feel like when it comes to Usher, there are some people who validate accounts of the sexual misconduct that was happening between them when he was a child.
Looking at this lawsuit, right, Lil Rod, he alleges that, Diddy told him personally that he had sex with Usher. And when you look at the lawsuit, even though they got Usher's name redacted, you could tell who it is because they describe him as the guy that performed at the Super Bowl.
Right.
So, I mean, we all know who that is, but how you feel about that, man?
But I mentioned that earlier, that he said about Stevie J. The Usher part, that's a touchy situation, man. But he got on Shay Shay and he mentioned how great and how good Puff taught him and everything. You know what I'm saying? About the business. I know, and people know, that was around that in that time that Puff and Usher did have a situation. And that situation led Usher to the hospital. Now, I let Usher explain that to y'all. I let Usher tell that story. But how dare you say a man that groomed you, you gonna give him a pass? Now, I'm telling that because you taking up for somebody that you know and a lot of more people know didn't do you right. Let Usher explain that to you. Let Usher mama explain that to you. And the hospital was in Scarsdale, New York.
But aside from all that, if there is a part 2, I hope it focuses on that. But then I learned some things that I hadn't really realized before, and that was that 50 Cent had a really interesting relationship with Soulja Boy. And I remember seeing that magazine cover with 50 and Soulja Boy when I was younger. But, I wasn't really hip or just aware of these things. So I had no idea. I had no real opinion of it. And then I also have seen some YouTube channels, TikTokers talking about this particular matter and how it seemed like 50 Cent had, in the same way that Diddy gets infatuated with Justin Bieber, 50 Cent was very impressed with Soulja Boy. And then Vivica Fox had, made a comment that, just a sly comment, she didn't say it outright, when she was on the Andy Cohen show, talking about how basically she said that 50 Cent was also, bisexual, whatever, however you want to put it, but she insinuated that.
50 Cent blamed the second season ratings dip on gay stuff. First of all, you know, the pot calling the kettle black is all I'm saying.
The pot calling the kettle black.
Whoa. That was some tea. That was shade. That was major shade.
Pot calling the kettle black. So, I mean, you're not insinuating that
he's
50
gay?
Cent is...
Oh my Lord, please. What? Girl, we gotta talk after this episode is over.
So if we were to ever get a part 2, that might be a little too close to home for 50 Cent. It could basically, pull out some of the demons in his closet, those secrets that he's buried for however long. And I think too, when you make these really big exposés about another person, and I won't say this is like motivated on revenge, I really do feel like 50 Cent did it for hip hop, and he did it for in a way of justice of, the artists that Diddy has robbed, but also Tupac and Biggie. And I do respect that. So I do think that was a huge part of the motivation. But it's interesting too when you think about it, because there's so many other people like Diddy in the industry. So it's hard to say. But today I want to tell you guys about a really crazy story and about a legal case that I read about. So while Diddy has been thriving in prison and he has access to the endless pussy and the ability to continue to use his wealth for social leverage, there is another story that we need to talk about. And this story involves a Sinaloa Cartel member named Alfredo Gonzalez. Hope this guy's still alive. Who knows? But Alfredo sued Diddy for defamation. So this cartel member expressed in his lawsuit that the cartel loves making connections with wealthy clients like Sean Diddy Combs. So on May 5th in 2021, Gonzalez receives a phone call from an associate of Diddy's. And this associate is like, hey, we'd love to do some business. Are you down? Gonzalez is like, absolutely, F yes. And he's thinking this is going to be a great celebrity connection. And so Diddy's associate is like, bet, here's what Diddy needs. So Gonzalez was completely expecting this to involve, narcotics. But Diddy's associate tells him that Diddy would like him to acquire some boys and girls. Not women and men, but boys and girls. So Gonzalez is like, what the F? The cartel, at least the Sinaloa Cartel, doesn't deal with child ST. And so Diddy's business partner tried to tell Gonzalez, listen, don't worry. Diddy's super discreet and no one can F with us. Gonzalez refuses again. So Diddy's partner tells him that he's making a mistake by not taking this business deal. And so Gonzalez just brushes it off. He continues his business as usual when Diddy's associate reaches out to him again. He asked Gonzalez if he would again acquire boys and girls, not women and men. Diddy's associate told Gonzalez that he could come to the party and watch the show the girls and boys, not women and men, put on. Gonzalez tells Diddy's business partner that he wants no part of this S-offender shit, and neither did the Sinaloa Cartel. And honestly, who doesn't love a criminal organization that has a few moral standards? I was very impressed by this. And also, of course, very impressed by the fact that this lawsuit even made it to court, because this is a openly admitted cartel member trying to sue somebody for defamation when he thought this was going to be a business transaction that involved narcotics only. So, all interesting. But Diddy's associate told Gonzalez that he, meaning Mr. Sean Diddy Combs, can make Gonzalez's life hell because of Diddy's street power. In New York City, to be particular. And Gonzalez is like, F it, do whatever you gotta do. He really didn't take it serious. But apparently Diddy did do something. He told folks in the underground world of New York City not to work with Alfredo Gonzalez of the Sinaloa Cartel. So thus we fast forward to 2024 as Sinaloa Cartel member Alfredo Gonzalez's defamation lawsuit, in which he was asking for $666,000 for defamation and loss of business damages. Now, what I know, we're all thinking the same thing. What in the Illuminati is going here with that 666? Gonzalez's case gets dismissed on August 12, 2024 by Judge Laura Taylor Swain of the Southern District Court of New York City. And so many questions there. You know, how is it that this cartel member made it so far in a lawsuit without implicating himself as a person of interest? This is the confusion I feel when I honestly see those narcotic or just cartel documentaries or drug smuggling documentaries, and you see these news clips of the cartel members, you know, covering their faces and really like confidently like discussing their business practices. And I just think, what war on drugs? When, where, what kind of clients did Gonzalez say the cartel likes? That's right, wealthy American clients. I mean, it would be a shame for, you know, the blow-snorting, molly-joller entertainers and politicians to not have access to their favorites. And, you know, I allege and I believe, you know, think about Biden, Trump, Clinton, Bush. You know, I think the way they are because it is a result of too many drugs and hard partying. And these people get access to the purest of these drugs. So it's not shocking to me. And, you know, I'm not excluding Obama from that list because, you know, I think he has some mess in his closet too, despite how charming and charismatic and likable he is. And I think that chef, you know, if he were still alive, he might also agree with me. But Gonzalez not only exposes Diddy's reach in the underground world of New York, but of course the use of boys and girls amongst entertainment elites. I mean, Diddy's associate told Gonzalez that he would be invited to the party to watch the show that the boys and girls, not women and men, are putting on. And of course, this made me think about Allie Carter and how she said she was trafficked into a Diddy party. She went through the underground tunnels between, you know, these huge mansions in Los Angeles, and that's how she made her way into these parties. And she talks about being a party favor, and I'll just play a clip just to refresh some of you guys' memories about that.
I was one of the kids that was one of the party favors. And a party favors means that you're set on top of a table and you're used as a toy for anybody who comes across the table or who wants to party at a certain time of night when the music stops and then the DJ starts flashing all these lights and they close the doors. And then everybody turns into like a frenzy and starts going into a crazed animal-like demonic state, and you have no idea what's going on. And yes, there was a time where I was just like completely don't give a shit because it happened, and I was the type of kid that thought that, you know, you're in the presence of royalty and they make it seem like you're in the presence of Hollywood, so you should be honored and you should be appreciating that you're there. And I was that person. I totally acted like that. I was like, oh, it's fine.
So on top of that, it also made me think about the MK Ultra survivor books that I've read. And these survivors talk about elite parties that involved entertainers and politicians where women, men, and children were victimized to the utmost degrading, inhumane degrees that one can ever imagine. And these are some of the most powerful, famous, and wealthy people in the world that are their victimizers, who come to these parties, who do heavy drugs, you know, like LSD and all those famous party narcotics, right? And then it also made me think about the Franklin cover-up, that infamous 1980s case that exposed a Nebraska satanic child ST ring involving high-ranking bank officials, a police chief, police officers, a school superintendent, multiple CPS workers, lawyers, prominent businessmen, countless exploited and victimized children. I mean, this case revealed how parties would be set up and the party favors are basically children, and how, these survivors would talk about how they would go to these, lofts or apartments or these party spaces, and it would basically just be a bunch of men and children. And so there are just numerous cases of this, that show that this is a common practice in the entertainment industry. And I would go on, but, this would become an entirely different episode because there are so many examples that I could give at this point. But I absolutely believe Alfredo Gonzalez. And no, I don't know what to make of that $666,000 and why that number is that number. But at this point, whether it's the Santeria, whether it's the hoodoo, the voodoo, the witchcraft, whatever it is, I've learned at this point that gangsters, high class, low class, whether it's people in the entertainment industry, politicians, businessmen, these people are doing some degree of witchcraft. So that could just be a whole nother story there. So I don't know. And I forgot to mention too, there was the Boy Scouts Troop 137 case, and this took place in 1970s, 1980s to the 1980s. But this case exposed high-ranking community members, including law enforcement and other high-profile society members, flying into Louisiana or neighboring states to engage in the victimization of Boy Scouts. These Boy Scouts mainly came from single-parent homes with no father figure. So these troop leaders would actually go into lower-income neighborhoods, look for single mothers with, boys, and then they would get them to join the Boy Scouts. And then eventually, everything looks normal. But next thing you know, they said, hey, can Johnny go on an overnight camping or field trip? And the mother is like, oh my gosh, it's just so nice that he has a father figure. And she says yes. But these boys are actually being smuggled into these secluded, party sites. And again, they become victimized, and they're these sexual favors for these, elite individuals within communities and just society overall. So this is a huge, huge pattern. And I also thought about, I don't know if it was 2 years ago or a year ago, but Larry Johnson, ex-NFL player, talked about the Jay-Z and Beyonce party that he went to and how there were random children at this evident adult party. And these children didn't look like they were children of any of the guests. These children were truly random. And I'm going to play this clip for you just to refresh your mind about it. But again, this is evidence of how this stuff works.
After B was a very young woman. Now, I did a Rockaware photo shoot in Colorado, and I think it was during the winter time of 06 or 07. And Naomi Campbell was there, actress Jamie King was there, Jay was there, B was there, and he rented this house, and we were supposed to do this rap party for this photo shoot. We rented this house, and we were watching LeBron play, and after the game, it had to have been like 10 or 11 o'clock. So we getting ready to party. Mind you, it's all adults. There was a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old teenage Latin girl that was there, and I think she had to leave because she had school and she had to do homework, but she brought her mother with her. So it was no funny business going on, which I could respect that. So when 11 o'clock hit, we turned on the music, we started drinking, and then out of nowhere came these young children. I don't know where they came from. For a rap party at 11 o'clock at night, drinking, loud music, and us dancing wild, like, I don't know where these kids came from. And then I happened to sit down because I was dancing with one of the assistants. And I sat next to this child, and the child sat next to Beyonce. So I hear B say something about, doesn't this look sexy, or isn't this sexy? And in my mind, and mind you, I'm not awakened as I'm awakened now. So in my mind, I'm like, what did she just say? And then I didn't pay no attention to it. And then, obviously the liquor took hold of me and I had to leave. So I said bye to everybody and left. But those kids remained. I don't know if those kids were from the photo shoot themselves, but the fact that these kids came around adults during drinking hours or partying hours was already alarming to me. So when I hear something like this happens, I can't really discount it and say, oh, he could never do this, because I'm hearing stories, I'm seeing it with my own eyes, and I've been in situations where something don't sound or look right, and it's usually involving children.
And I had to play that clip of Larry Johnson because when you think of Diddy, it's hard not to think about Jay-Z. They've been so interconnected and they have such a brotherhood, that they've kind of portrayed to the public when it comes to the hip-hop industry. I think Diddy said Jay-Z is the only one that is allowed to call him Sean or something like that. But they love working together. They love partying together. They both have an alleged interest in underage artists. They both have displayed similar patterns about how they acquire young female talent and how that talent, eventually becomes property in their mind. And this property they can do whatever they want with. But then I also thought about, Jay-Z's admiration of Aleister Crowley, the dark magic wizard who instilled the practice of sex magic that involved the victimization of children. And whether that's to extract their blood or harvest energy, there's no way you can support someone like that without knowing what that person stood for and did on a regular basis. And I don't know, I believe Diddy definitely engages in sex magic when it comes to the baby oil parties and, everything that he had Cassie doing and just the constant extraction of sexual energy and keeping the semen of some of the male sex workers. He was definitely doing sex magic. It wasn't just, he likes to rub it on his body and stuff. No, you don't take someone's semen. That is like currency if you think about dark magic. Like, semen is you can do a lot with semen, from what I would assume, if you're doing some sort of spell or something, or making some sort of concoction. But I think about all these things when it comes to Diddy, and I was so grateful that Alfredo Gonzalez sued Diddy and brought this issue to attention. And I think his focus wasn't even the fact that, Diddy was asking for the boys and the girls. I think he definitely wanted to expose that, but he definitely was also like, you've effed up all of my business connections in New York. What do you expect me to do? I'm going to have to sue you. That is what Americans do, right? That is the American way. And again, that $666,000 is absolutely questionable. And again, gangsters like witchcraft. Think about Bone Thugs and Harmony. There's just too many examples of that. But again, that's a whole other subject matter. But what my point is that these parties in which children are acquired and victimized, this has been going on since, based on my research, ancient Greece, and then ancient Rome, and this has been going on for a long, long time. So this has just been embedded in, our culture. But the fact that, in America, that there's evidence of this happening since, I'm going to say the 1970s, but I believe, of course, it was happening way before that. But from what I've been researching, these elite parties involving elite community members, powerful people in different states, business, and, political, what have you, and then entertainment, industry people, all of that. This is common practice. We acquire these children, we victimize them, we drug them, some of them forget, some of them don't live to see the next day, and it just goes on. They've just been getting away with this for so long. And now that, everybody is just wanting to get the full scope of the Epstein files and everything that's in there, I find that the truth we all know at the end of the day, whether people want to deny it to themselves or not. And those that want to deny it don't want to deal with the reality of what must be done because of it. And yes, it will absolutely fracture the foundations of multiple nations. But at the same time, I wonder how people would actually react, what they would actually do, because, I know this isn't the best example, but when I think about people who still eat at McDonald's, or the fact that so many people were like, oh, we're not going to buy anything for Black Friday, we're going to boycott this, and yet billions of dollars was spent on Black Friday. People still, engaged in practice in that. So it doesn't actually make sense that I don't actually believe that people can fully rally together, see beyond their differences, and truly stand up for children and hold these powerful people in America and other nations on this planet accountable. And again, like I've said in my previous episodes, there's so much that people would have to address and acknowledge, and that includes witchcraft. That includes the reality and the darkness that happens to children who are, victimized in these settings with these powerful people. There's a lot of ugly truths that go way beyond just the ST and the SA. I mean, you'd have to acknowledge the cannibalism and the blood and the organ harvesting. There's just so much more to it than all of that. And as always, I encourage people to read some MK Ultra Survivor books, do your research. And again, I've mentioned this before, but the Survivor books that I've read, some of them were written in the 80s, some of them were written in the 90s. Some of them are more current. But the stories, and none of these victims, well, maybe they know each other at this point, but who knows? But their stories are very similar. And their stories include things such as blood magic, cannibalism, mind control, drugs, entertainers, politicians, powerful business leaders, royal families, all very similar accounts to the point where you just cannot deny that these things are actually happening. But that's all I have for this episode. Sleepyheads, let me know what you think in the comments below. And yeah, let me know what you thought of the documentary. Let me know if you think that there will actually be a part 2. And will 50 Cent have the balls to expose the sexual misconduct happening with underage children in the industry, and how a lot of these young artists get turned out by these older artists and become victimized by them, and they're never the same after. And there's just countless examples of that. But thank you so much, Sleepyheads, for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. I am so grateful. I can't wait to talk again, and I hope you guys have a great night. Bye, Sleepyheads.